we just celebrated Lag BaOmer this past week, and on Lag BaOmer we have a custom of shooting bows and arrows. I'd like to use the following story to bring out a powerful lesson that you can apply in business, at home, or any area of your life. The Rambam is known to be a great philosopher. He was in the time, of Aristotle. Also a great Maimonides, a great believer in Hashem. And also, like Aristotle was somebody praised by Rambamism, but as there's other stories, we know he didn't believe in Hashem. Some people ask the Rambam, how is it that you're such a chacham, such a philosopher? How is it with everything you've learned, you have such a belief in Hashem and the Eibishter? So he answered with this mashal. He said there was once a great king who loved shooting arrows. That was his taiva, his pleasure. And specifically when somebody's precise, when you're able to shoot the target and hit right in the bullseye. So he was a professional himself, and would walk around his kingdom or in the farms, and happened to stumble across this simple farmer's home, and he sees on the home an arrow directly in the bullseye, not an inch off. Sometimes the bullseye has a little bit of space, but this was precisely in the middle. And he was amazed, he was surprised, because this is something he loves. How he got it, he has to see who's the one that shot this arrow. So he walked over, he came across the farmer, and he said, wow, not even off a dot. He called over his farmer, and he was so excited. He said, how did you do it? How did you manage to hit it directly bullseye? So the simple farmer, being a simple guy, he laughed. He said, King, I think I first shot the arrow at the target and I hit bullseye. That'd be crazy. First I shoot the arrow and then I draw the bullseye all around it. So what was the Rambam bringing out is that's what he does. First before looking into philosophies, before looking into how things work, he anchors himself in Hashem. He's the arrow. He shoots the arrow. That's wherever he is, wherever he looks, whatever is at the center of anything he's looking, he's doing. It has Hashem, and from there nothing is going to move him because that's what he believes in. That's the arrow. So anything around it, he's already in the bullseye. Being drawn and being directly aligned with Hashem, like the Rambam, I'll bring out. There's a powerful lesson. I think we can see that. Similarly, we have challenges, we have problems, things in our life, even goals, things that we want. That's the targets we want to go at. But instead, sometimes we're often looking to shoot at something. But here, I think a powerful thing we can bring out is first, change your state, then solve the problem. Change your reality, shoot the arrow, and then draw your target around it. What do I mean? We have certain goals, we have certain problems, whether it's in work or in our personal lives, things we want to do, and it seems like something outside of us, and we have to shoot an arrow, shoot at the target to get there. But what if we first bring to mind and train ourselves to feel as if we already hit the target? When you hit the target, just like this king in the story, he was so excited to see something that is directly bullseye. You accomplished your goal. And we don't actually have to accomplish something to be able to know what does that feel like. Whatever the goal is or whatever the challenge, we know when it's accomplished, when it's done, we're going to feel excited, we're going to feel grateful, we're going to feel joyous. So what if we first start from there? And then do the things around that. Approach the problem from that state of, we're already the bullseye. We already accomplished the target. So I'm responding to whatever the challenge is, whatever the goal is, from a place of gratitude, as if I already have it, as opposed to I'm lacking it. So in life, in business, we're trained to believe that better thinking sometimes leads to better results. But I'm sure we've all have experienced that when we're stressed, when we're panicked, when we're not feeling well, our thoughts are just a direct effect of how we're feeling. There's something called a thinking feeling loop. That if I'm thinking, lousy, my thoughts are gonna equal to that. And then based on that, I'm gonna have thoughts that are just in alignment with how lousy I'm feeling, and it'll create more of that feeling of lousiness, and you have a full circle. A little bit of my own journey and what even led to now, I learned and practiced meditation. And one of the persons that I learned from was a doctor who would actually at the retreats use brain scans to measure what's going on in the brain and the body when a person are in these states, right? They're disconnecting from certain sensory information and able to go inward. And we found is when we're trying to think out of a problem from the place of the problem, from stress, we're only actually making our brain worse. There's different parts of our brain that are not communicating in a holistic, coherent way, so we're not even able to see how to be outside of that problem. But the truth is, we solve problems based on the state that we're in. Like I was mentioning, we don't solve it from that same state of consciousness that we created the problem. So in Chassidus, where do we see this? So on Yutes ER in Tufshin Lamed Dalet, on the 19th of ER in 5734, the Rebbe delivered a Maimer Pasach Rabbi Shimon BaOmer Ani Ledodi Ba'alai Kashukasi. That Rabbi Shimon opened up a discourse and he said, "I am to my beloved, and on me is his desire, his thirst." It really goes into a theme of how Rashbi was bound and unified with Hashem all of the days of his life, and when he passed away on his Histalkos, that's when it was revealed that really every day he was bound with Hashem. But in the Maimer, the Rebbe brings a difference between Dveikus and Hiskashrus. Terms we're familiar with, but something that was not familiar to me was Dveikus. Usually, you think about as, you're one with Hashem. You're completely bound. But really, he explains that Hiskashrus is something that's higher than Dveikus. Dveikus is, I have a Dveikus with my friend over here. He's still him, I'm still me, but now we're bound together. But we still each have one's own self. Whereas Hiskashrus is something that we're one. There's no individual self. He explains that the Dveikus is like the outer Mizbeach, where we have karbonos, and he says like a belt around the waist, connecting apart, but it's something external. While Hiskashrus is like the Ketores, something that was often more internally, that was also done in a quiet way by the Kohanim. And the avoda, the work, based like similar to karbonos, to the offerings, is stuff that's al pi tam vadas, based on our thought and our reasoning. We have a certain problem, and we can use our mind and our intellect to approach it. But Hiskashrus is beyond its lemaila tam vadas. It's beyond our thinking brain. It comes from the pnimius halev, which is where something is. It's steadfast. It doesn't change. So it's from that place. I think we can be that state and then act around it, because from that place we have that all knowingness that who we are. So whether you're managing listings, negotiating a deal, or involved in some kind of customer relations, we have different situations that come up that require a response. But sometimes we're out of alignment with ourselves. We feel pressured, we're stressed, we're not fed, we had a disagreement with someone in our family, and therefore that leads us to react rather than respond consciously. So Rashbi, as we were exploring, every day was his life. It was in alignment with Hashem. similar to this mashal, of the Rambam, or like similar to the mashal, the Rashi was anchored in with Hashem. He was the arrow, and so everything around him was a direct outgrowth, was the bullseye or he was drawing the target around where he was, because he was first aligned with Hashem. So, but when Rashi said Pasach, when he opened up and said Ani Ledordi Pasach, means that he opened up the tzinor, he opened up the gate, the faucet, for each of us to have the koyach, the strength, to be able to model after him when we're learning Torah, when we're involved with business or with our families or anything else. Our whole self, our whole metzias is in that Torah that we're learning, or in that certain act that we're present with, or in, but also we're present, our whole self is there with the Noisin Torah, with Hashem, the giver of the Torah.
So how does someone create himself to be the arrow first before the bow left?
Meaning, so we have looking at a bow and arrow. Also, when you're shooting, it requires first opening one's chest and drawing the bowstring back actually towards one's heart. Meaning, so here's step. Meaning, how does it, to answer your question, how do we first be that arrow in that target? So first, well, open up, see what state am I in. Ask yourself, am I being the bullseye, or am I trying to hit the bullseye? Let's say you have a certain goal in your business. Somebody wants to find a shidduch, easier example perhaps. There's me, and then there's the target. But this approach is being aligned with that goal already. Imagining we have the power with prayer, with davening, with meditation, to live as if that goal is already accomplished. Right? The Rebbe would often encourage us to live with the times of Mashiach. Here is getting clear on what exactly the goal is and the emotions, what exactly, painting a whole picture, making everything clear. When you have that goal accomplished, when you hit the bullseye, what does that feel like? What does that look like? All the different details. Right. But with prayer, with meditation, these different tools, even learning Chassidus, we learn that your body doesn't know the difference between a thought or an experience. When you're really present, you can entrain your body, you can entrain yourself to feel as if it's already accomplished that end. So sometimes you may not actually need that thing, because what you really might be seeking is the emotions, the feelings that might come with it. So if you're looking for it, if you're looking for that goal, now you're separate from it. But what if you're living as if you already are? What if you're already the arrow, and now you're drawing the goals around it? You're moving from that space. So first step would be check your state. Even when a certain challenge comes up, what state am I in? Am I pressured? Am I reactive? The bullseye, like I said, represents your intention, your goal. And then you're drawing around that, which is the arrow, which is you. You are the arrow, you're in the middle of the bullseye. You're acting, you're being as if you've already hit the bullseye. Then you're shooting. And it's from this place, from anywhere that you shoot is already on target, because you are the arrow. And wherever you are is directly in the bullseye. But from this state, you're acting from a place of alignment rather than urgency or fear or any type of limitation. To follow on the concept or the aspect of how do we be in that state? How do we? Because it requires in tune with oneself, with the body, with Hashem. So as a former college basketball player, was obsessed and passionate about this athlete zone or the flow state that's often talked about these days. But it's when you're really locked in and present in something.
It's pretty cool how you're on both spectrums. You're big into meditation, and then when it comes to being active, it's the other extreme.
Performance.
Yeah.
like hustling and performance.
Yeah, basketball is a pretty intense sport. As
Yeah.
opposed to, baseball or whatever.
But what do you see when you listen to experts? Let's say Kobe Bryant, Oliver. Can I say Oliver Shaw? I don't know. Whatever. When you talk about him or any other person, or even let's say a professional archer, the pressure around them is great, but inside to perform at such a level, they have to have that inner poise.
Tranquility.
They have to have that inner tranquility. So that's what this flow state. That's what this flow state is. It's not just about productivity. It's what happens when there's no internal noise. For me, as a basketball player, the hoop expands. It looks like a hula hoop. You could just throw the ball up, and it looks like it's going in. There's no thinking. There's no friction. We have in Chassidus when you're aligned. When you're moving from a place of your pneumius, the inner part of your heart. What happens from there? Then your thinking comes naturally. If you're thinking from a problem, right? We have a certain challenge, and now if you already begin to celebrate, let's say, if we move our body, there's a saying when our body moves, our brain grooves. When we lift up and move our body, our brain, if we're exercising, we're feeling good, we're dancing, let's say, it kind of opens us up to think of something new, another way, instead of from a place of cottoness or restriction. In your guys' different work, there's so many things that you can't control. Different things come up, but what matters, what you do have influence over, is how do you respond to them? How do you respond? If you respond from a place of already, let's say, accomplished, you're good. The way that you're going to show up for the customers or anything else is going to be at this state of poise. Next time something needs your attention or response, remember, pause, check first the state that you're in, shift it, be the target first, and then move around there. The certain situations that might come up may be similar, but the state that you're in is different, and therefore there's going to be a whole completely different outcome. You can also see this in this week's parsha. It says Im bechokosai telechu. The Rebbe I was learning a sikha explains that telechu, a real true telechu, true going, is from when it's without limit, when it's from a place of you're bringing your whole self, when it's something that you're very passionate about, then you're really going. And im has to do with not just if, but a request of Hashem that comes with a promise. If you go in my bechukosai, if you go in my mitzvahs and do it from a place of Kabbalah's then the next verse talks about the rains will be in their time, the rain being the gashmias, the benefits, the things that we come as a result of how we're being. So some other tools that may help get into that flow is, we could even also ask yourself, how would you be if you knew you already accomplished that certain goal or that certain target that you're looking to accomplish? Other things, practical things that can help you have Chassidus, meditation. I'd love to share more about that. Davening, breathing, just checking in with your breath. Doesn't have to be a whole breathwork session. It's also been a real game changer for myself in life, especially the past year or so, is these personal development and personal health things, focusing on oneself. It doesn't have to be a whole thing itself. A little bit, less is more. A little bit can go a long way. And in this way of dealing with work, dealing with their families, or approaching different challenges, you are the arrow and the target. You don't have to try and hit the target.
Or
comments or
like
feedback.
everything good in life, it doesn't happen in an instant. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of discipline, and most people lack that level of work and discipline necessary to get to the goal of what you explained over here. Well, with the right amount of work and the right amount of effort, and then yeah, it's a beautiful concept, and
It's not taking away the work, but
it's necessary. What I'm saying is, to attain what you're saying is it's beautiful. It's just not easy to get there. It's a lot of work to get there.
It takes a little bit of effort, you could say, but it's more of appealing a way to recognize. Let's say I want to get from here to back to the yeshiva, or even I want to go on a trip somewhere. My brain is only aware of things that I have knowledge of and experience with, share personal experience. I never heard of Hadar Torah. I was in Morristown and I was in Minot, thank you. I didn't really like either one. I was living in Texas with my parents. I knew I wanted to continue. I was in Morristown. I went home for a break. And I knew I wanted to continue learning Torah, but in my mind, the only options I had was New Jersey. It was COVID, so I couldn't really fly to Israel. Or at my home with my parents where I could learn on my own, you know. But instead, I thought first from, like I'm talking about, and I wrote to the Rebbe about it as well, which of course helps. I said, what would be an ideal yeshiva for me? I want to be around real mashpim. You know, I heard at the time about different, hear Baal Shem Tov stories and real Chassidim of the Rebbe. Is anybody like that these days? I want to be around like-minded individuals. I want to have access to, good food. I didn't really like the food of these yeshivas. I wanted to be in a place that's going to be a next step towards shidduchim. I got clear on these aspects. And the bullseye, the target, or the arrow, was I know when I find this place, I'm going to feel joyous, I'm going to be full of life, and it's going to lead to such great learning. So what happens, now I'm moving from this space, so sure there's work involved, but I'm living, the way I act out the days is I'm as if I'm already found it. So I had a flight to New York, and I'm thinking I'm going to go back to New Jersey because it was still the better options. I was in Crown Heights staying with a family, and there was a rabbi that would commute every day to New Jersey. So what happens, I'm thinking I'm going to get up in the morning and go with him. A friend of mine who I was at with these other yeshivas happened to say, hey, I'm at this yeshiva here. There's a rabbi gives a class at 8 o'clock in the morning, Rabbi Goldberg. Why don't you check it out? So it came out of the blue. So I said, let me give it a shot. And next thing I know, I become aware of this Hadar Torah, which, at least for me, was exactly what I was looking for. But you see, like I wasn't even aware of it. That's what leads to hashgacha pratis, synchronicity, these kind of moments. So in a sense, it didn't require so much of a work as much as shifting how I'm going about the days.
But it's still to actively accomplish that you should be able to put yourself in the picture and then build a picture around it. It takes a tremendous amount of work. It's not that it can't be done, it takes a tremendous amount of work. You wrote the story where, thankfully I brought it to you. But that's not.
Maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So I'll tell that story with the Machaber who couldn't figure out something in the base medrash. He stayed up the whole night to figure out. Finally, like 5 a.m, he got the answer. He went to the base medrash and he saw Chavrusa learning, and they were talking about the answer. And he was a Machaber. He was, how does this lousy Chavrusa get my answer? And they found out that it was the Rambam, whoever said, as soon as you bring it down, anyone has access to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. I appreciate your share.
You too.
You were called the basketball?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yo, this guy's
That's D1?
his brother's
D3.
D1 is, I guess, it's the opposite, right?
D1 is the highest, like the NCAA
Baseball, it's the
finals.
opposite. Like,
Right.
like AAA is D1.
right.
He still plays ball.
D3 like for
Bro.
CB University.